He thought he could fix it. When the separation was announced, Jason Momoa held on to hope. He kept calling her family, kept showing up, kept holding space for something, anything, to bring them back together. But Lisa Bonet had already let go. She didn't leave with drama. She didn't speak to the press. She just drifted into silence, and by the time Jason realized what he'd lost, the door was already closed. He tried. He showed up at Zoe's events. He spoke about love. He wore the grief quietly, but love isn't always enough. And sometimes, the fight comes too late. Now, Jason is finally admitting the truth behind their final chapter, what he tried to do to win her back, and why it didn't matter. Because she wasn't angry. She was gone. And there's nothing more painful than trying to hold on to someone who's already let go. Before it ended, before the heartbreak, before the silence, Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet were what so many people dreamed of. A love that felt untouched by Hollywood. A connection that looked like soulmates in real time. From the beginning, Jason spoke about Lisa as more than a partner. He called her his dream woman, literally. As a young boy watching her on The Cosby Show, he told his mother, "One day, I'm going to meet her." Years later, he did. But their story wasn't just about destiny, it was about depth. They shared a spiritual bond, raised children together, and built a home life that deliberately rejected the chaos of celebrity culture. While other couples chased fame, Jason and Lisa chose peace. They practiced stillness, nature, family, sacred moments over public ones. Jason brought the fire, Lisa the earth, and together they created something rare, something fans believed would last forever. For more than 15 years, they stayed committed. And even when they weren't legally married until 2017, their bond had long felt deeper than any contract. Jason's admiration for Lisa never wavered. In every interview, he gushed about her, called her his queen, his balance, his anchor. He credited her with helping him grow, center himself, and find strength in silence. He wore his love openly, and fans adored him for it. They were different, real, rooted, and that's what made the separation so painful. Because when you spend years believing a love is built to weather anything, it's easy to miss the cracks forming under the surface. And for Jason, he didn't see them in time. When Jason and Lisa announced their split in early 2022, the world was stunned. There were no cheating scandals, no messy breakups, no fighting in public. Just a quiet, poetic statement posted on social media. "We share our family news, that we are parting ways in marriage. We share this not because we think it's news, but so that as we go about our lives, we may do so with dignity and honesty." They spoke of evolution, of freeing each other, of love continuing, but in new forms. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was gentle, respectful, almost beautiful. But behind the graceful language was something much heavier. Jason didn't want it to be over. He never said that outright. Not then. But his actions in the months that followed spoke volumes. He kept calling her my family. He stayed close to Zoe Kravitz, Lisa's daughter. He showed up at premieres solo but supportive. And when asked about the separation, he didn't speak in absolutes. He left the door cracked, just enough for fans to wonder, is he hoping she'll come back? Lisa, however, said nothing. She didn't appear publicly, didn't make a statement, didn't feed the press. She simply stepped back, calm, resolved, silent. And sometimes, silence is the loudest response of all. Because while Jason was still holding on, Lisa had already let go. Sources close to the couple began to reveal that Jason had tried to repair things behind the scenes. He had hoped the separation would be temporary, that with space and reflection, they could reconnect. He wasn't chasing the spotlight, he was chasing the past. He thought they could find their way back, one insider said. But Lisa had already made peace with the ending. It wasn't that she didn't love him. It was that she had already mourned the relationship, long before the world ever knew it was ending. That's the part that breaks your heart. Because sometimes we think we're in the middle of a pause, when the other person has already said goodbye. Jason Momoa is not a man who gives up easily. He's fought for every role, every opportunity, every inch of ground in an industry that once didn't know what to do with a man like him. And when it came to Lisa Bonet, the fight was no different, except this time he was fighting for something he had already lost. In the weeks following their separation, Jason stayed close to the family. He showed up at events for Zoe Kravitz. He supported her when she hosted Saturday Night Live, when the Batman premiered, and when she made her red carpet rounds. Not as an ex-stepfather, as family. He posted messages that sounded like they were directed at Lisa. Short, poetic, full of love still. We free each other to be who we are learning to become. Fans noticed that even in separation, Jason didn't speak like a man who had moved on. He spoke like a man waiting for another chance. And behind the scenes, that's exactly what sources claimed he was doing. One close friend reportedly told People, Jason really believed they would get back together. He gave her space. He did the work. But she was already gone. Emotionally, spiritually, she had detached before he even realized it. It wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It was final. Because Lisa didn't leave to prove a point. She left because her decision was already lived out in her body, her mind, her spirit, long before the world heard about it. Jason, meanwhile, was still in the thick of the emotional process. He tried to make changes, pulled back from work, spent more time with his kids, grounded himself. But by then, he wasn't fixing the relationship. He was healing from its loss. There's a difference between trying to win someone back and learning to let go when they no longer want to be one. Jason's love was real, so was his effort. But love can't survive on effort alone, not when the other person has already closed the chapter. As the months passed, Jason's hope turned to heartbreak. He stopped hinting at reconciliation. He stopped romanticizing the sacred separation. His interviews shifted from optimism to something quieter, something heavier. In a conversation with Men's Health, he was asked about his emotional growth. He spoke less like a man holding on, and more like one who was learning to accept the loss. We're family, always, but things evolve. You have to respect someone enough to let them change. That kind of maturity doesn't come easy, especially when your love didn't end in betrayal or tragedy. It just ended. Jason admitted that he'd poured so much of himself into the relationship that he didn't realize Lisa had stopped receiving it. She wasn't angry. She wasn't spiteful. She was simply done. And that's the kind of heartbreak that lingers the longest. When you know the person didn't leave because they stopped loving you. They left because they stopped feeling seen. I thought I was showing up, Jason said. But sometimes what we give isn't what they need. There were no dramatic gestures. No grand apologies, just quiet reflection. And eventually surrender. Jason didn't beg. He didn't push. Because as much as he wanted her back, he loved her more than he loved the idea of holding on. That's what true heartbreak looks like. Not chasing someone, not demanding closure, but loving them enough to let them go with dignity. And now, Jason stands beside the truth. He tried. He showed up. He spoke love even when it wasn't returned. But Lisa had already left the story. And chasing someone who's already gone? That's not romance. It's grief. Today, Jason Momoa speaks like a man who has been through something sacred and irreversible. He doesn't speak with bitterness. He doesn't speak with blame. He speaks with reverence. Lisa Bonet is no longer his partner. But she is still, in every way that matters, part of his story. And maybe that's the hardest part, because love doesn't always end with a villain. Sometimes it ends with a slow goodbye. One person holds on, hoping for revival. The other slips into quiet acceptance. Jason now talks about Lisa the way you talk about a lesson that broke you open and made you better. Love doesn't leave, he said. It changes shape. He still calls her family, still shows up for Zoe. Still credits Lisa with helping him become the man he is today. But behind those words is the truth he can't rewrite. He didn't act fast enough. He didn't hear her soon enough. He didn't fight for her until she had already walked away. That's what makes this story so quietly devastating. It wasn't a lack of love. It was a lack of timing. Because sometimes we don't realize the cost of our emotional absence until we try to return. And the door isn't locked. It's just no longer there. Jason Momoa will likely find love again. He may rebuild, move forward, smile without the ache one day. But Lisa, she was the love he waited for his whole life. And now she's the one he had to set free. There's a quiet lesson in all of this. One your audience knows too well, that the worst heartbreak doesn't always come from betrayal. It comes from realizing you were too late to listen, too late to change, too late to show up the way someone needed you to before they stopped asking. And now Jason walks forward with that knowledge, not as a man defeated, but as one who finally understands the cost of waiting. Because in the end, he tried to win her back, but she was already gone. For more of the latest news, check out this video.